We always thank God, thank Hollywood.
Okay, did you notice my tacky attire?
I can't say I did. Of course,
That's
yeah.
probably, I know.
I feel overdressed.
I know. Well, if that's the case, I bring gifts. So have you seen my little obsession with, you're like, no, I have a life. So this is when I always get comfy.
Oh.
And they're all brand new. So if you'd like, you can join me in the festivities.
You want me to put on socks?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. You don't have to, but I mean.
Well, would you feel more comfortable?
It's not about me.
No, I want you to feel good.
Whose show is it? He's like,
No.
I want you to feel good. I should be saying that to you. Here's the thing. Here's the
My feet are cold anyway.
Okay, so you're welcome, right?
Okay, which one
Now,
should I
I think
have?
you should do like hot pink. Do I have hot pink?
Are you sure?
What are those?
Well, I don't know.
They're like cherries.
It's almost like Christmassy.
They're cherries, which aren't Christmassy, but it matches your jacket.
Well, yeah, okay.
I promise they're brand new. I just cut the tags off. So I'm not like recycling socks whenever guests come.
You know what? My feet are cold anyway, and I feel like I should be, we should have our feet in the right place.
Well, the other thing is, can you please work on the weather in Nashville? Whenever I come here, it's cold and rainy, and I didn't think it did that here.
2 weeks ago, it was like 70 degrees here. Remember when it was warm? It was.
I don't know if I believe you.
Look at how pretty.
Look how cute you.
Now I fit the whole thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you have funny hats in there too?
No, that's it. Because nothing fits on my head. The hair usually makes things pop right up.
All right. Sure.
No, I'm serious. I always said, because I'm in Florida now, I left the Northeast, and I always said Nashville would be the perfect happy medium. Because it doesn't feel like winter, but it's chillier, nice coats, you can wear some Ugg boots, versus my palm trees, which I prefer. And every time I come, like, it's cold. There was snow recently. I was here last January when there was like the 10-inch blizzard.
Yeah, the one time it snowed. Yeah.
Is Nashville trying to like kick me out and say don't?
No, well, you just wait a few days and the snow will be gone. I mean, it's snowed one time so far this year. I keep hoping it's going to snow again a little bit. We made a snowman for the grandkids the whole thing. Yeah.
See, this is your Midwestern coming out again.
Yeah, it's Illinois.
This is Illinois.
We remember. But this is nowhere near Chicago. Chicago gets blistering cold, and you have winter all year. This is actually pretty easy compared to that.
So I'm soft.
Yeah. Yeah, you are.
Basically.
And now you live in Florida.
I'll be the first to admit it. I know. So these aren't exactly palm trees, but it makes me feel like,
like you're home.
Kind of, sort of. No, I'm a loser, and that comes from 17 years in Connecticut, too, which is basically Chicago.
Well, it gets cool. Yeah, it's cold there.
Miserable.
It's much colder there than it is here.
I know. Thank you. I know.
You just don't like the cold anymore.
No, it hurts my bones.
No matter where it is.
No, you know what? And I don't mind the cold as much as I mind the gray. Yeah. When it's gray, that's when I think I'm proof that there is seasonal affectiveness disorder. Like it's real.
I'm living here for about a year and a half. We went through our first winter when we got here, and I thought it was going to be, just a lot worse than it was, a lot harder. But it was cold for a little while, and there was some snow, and there was some ice, but then it kind of went away. Same thing here. I mean, the sun will be out in 5 minutes,
Yeah.
And then, it's a different day.
Do you miss California at all in that way you lived in a great area.
Yeah. We lived in California from 1987. I moved there from Chicago in '87 with my wife, and then we started having our kids, and all our kids were born there. All our kids went to school there and everything like that. I had a lot of success in the movie and TV business. A lot of good things about California that were very good to us for 35 years. And then I just decided it was time for a change. We wanted something different. And coming here, do I miss California? There's certain things I miss about it because we were just there, and there's a lot of memories and a lot of good things with our kids and everything. But we like it here a lot. We like it here a lot. I was just back in California for 2 weekends in a row doing things there, and drove around to, some of the places that we used to go to and all of that. And I miss it a little bit, but we're getting used to it here too.
Well, there's a lot of your people from California who are coming here.
Many, yeah, many.
My fear is
I have a lot of
we
friends
don't
that
need
came
too
in.
many though, right? Because
Right.
come, but can we not turn this into California? Isn't
We-
that a legit fear?
Right, yeah, I mean, the roads aren't wide enough for all the cars that are coming. I mean, there's construction on the roads everywhere you go. And, a lot of people are moving here, from not only from California, from different states and all that. It's a really nice place. People are really nice here, and it's very comfortable. And our kids are loving it. They're raising their kids here.
Oh, they're all
They
here
didn't
too.
really want to raise their kids in California. No schools there and all that. And they're raising their kids here, and they're really, really loving it. So I'm happy here.
That's great for you if the grandkids are here.
We wouldn't have come here if my daughter, who has 3, she was living in California, right near us. She has 3. Our other daughter was in the D.C. area.
Yeah.
And we were trying to get her to move back to California, and then I started thinking, well, maybe I need to get out of California. So I asked my daughter there if I was thinking of moving to someplace like Nashville or something. Would you think about doing that too? That night, I got 6 different houses online that she found. Dad, look what you can get, and blah blah blah. And she was all over it, and that made a difference. If she wouldn't have wanted to move from California, we wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
But the fact that Sophie said she wanted to come, and her husband works for my foundation, and I was going to move the foundation out, so it all worked out just great. We got all the kids here.
As it was supposed to, which is why you're doing snowmen in the yard once a year with it.
I haven't made a snowman in years, and here I am with my little granddaughter making a snowman. Yeah, it
Well,
was
you
great.
had the real deal skill set for snowmen living in Chicago. I mean, that was like, that's real.
once you get it in there, it
Like
all
riding a
comes
bike.
back.
It
It's
all-
absolutely all comes back very quickly.
Being in California, you were, first of all, I think that's the most amazing thing about you that I've seen through the years from afar is the volunteer work you do and how much you do to give back to millions of other people. And this time it was to help with some of the fire victims.
Yeah, that's what
why you were in
that's
California?
one of the things I was doing on the road the past couple of weekends. I have a band. We play for the military, and I've done hundreds of concerts. And so I set up 3 concerts in California. One at Fort Hunter Liggett, which is up kind of near Monterey, about an hour from Monterey. We set up a concert there, and then I have one that I do every year down at Naval Medical Center in San Diego. That's the hospital there, the Naval Medical Hospital. We bring people outside. We get them outside, and we play for them and feed them, and it's a great event. And then we went to Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico.
Yeah.
So knowing that I was going to California and witnessing these horrific fires from afar, and having been there for 35 years and gone through 35 years of fire seasons, I just wanted to do something for our first responders there. I knew I was going there, so I went there a day early, and we fed about 600 firefighters, police officers, National Guard, emergency workers down at Will Rogers Beach, which is right near the Palisades. And they took me up.
been there.
The Palisades are really closed now. I mean, so much of it is evacuated and destroyed, but the firefighters took me up, and I got to see what was going on up there, and it's horrific. And then the following weekend, I was going back for another event in L.A. and then one in Palm Springs. And so as soon as I got there, we went to Altadena, to La Cañada Flint Ridge, and we served food for Altadena Fire Department and L.A. Fire Department and police officers and, all the folks there, forest workers, the Forest Service up there. We served about I don't know, 400. And we do this at the Gary Sinise Foundation with one of our programs called Serving Heroes, and it just came out of me kind of buying some food for folks in restaurants or whatever. And then when I created the foundation, we started raising money. I wanted to do something ongoing to let them know that we were thinking about them. So we provide these meals all over the country. We've served over 1 million meals all over the country and overseas, and we're doing it all the time. And it's just really, to me, that particular program at the foundation is more about sending the message of remembrance and gratitude and appreciation rather than the food. You know, they can get food, but somebody like me or my foundation goes in there and says, thank you, we're thinking about you, we want you to enjoy a meal on us and the American people who support us. That can make a difference, I think. It lifts people up. And I think we helped out. Pardon me?
What does it do for you?
Well, for me, it's, you know, service is a great healer when you're struggling with things. And I've found, you know, through times, difficult times that I've had personally, or that, you know, our country has had, or whatever, that getting out there and doing something for somebody else can really just, you forget about all that. And I've seen so many smiles and so many, you know, the impact that's made when you show up can be great. You know, it's a small gesture that can make a great difference. And so that's a good feeling for me.
Yeah.
And, you know, something that gives the life great purpose, I think, and certainly made the career that I've had in the movie and television business make that much more sense, because I can actually do something with it, and that's positive for somebody else. It's a good feeling.
Well, and you know, sometimes, like you said, just simply being there, being present, and when people realize that they're not alone, they're suffering together, sadly, but it is helpful when you could put your arm around somebody, but they see that you've made the effort. Sometimes it's just effort. Have you ever worked with Mission Barbecue? Does your foundation ever?
Yeah, we Mission, we do multiple events throughout the year with Mission, and we will, you know, we'll hire them to come and bring the food over, and we pay for all the food, and they come over, and we'll usually have volunteers that come in, put on the Sinise Foundation aprons.
Great.
I love doing that, you know. And quite often we'll work with Mission. And out in California, we're working with Wood Ranch, which is a great LA-based restaurant chain, and we've worked with them for years. And they're a great barbecue spot as well. And so they did our events for us.
Oh, cool.
In Los Angeles, and you know, we pay for it all, and you know, tell them where to be and make it hot and get over there.
It's amazing, and I'm so curious in a sensitive way to what's going on and how can I help. And I actually was on the day before the Trump election, the election. I guess it wasn't just his. I was in North Carolina, touring Asheville with Tulsi Gabbard, my goodness, what that did! It affected me so much that I'm trying to find other ways now. Samaritan's Purse is a wonderful.
They're great.
Incredible what these people do.
Wonderful stuff.
And it's regular people volunteering to come in for however long needed, in this case, to try to salvage some of the homes that were still barely standing after what happened in the mountains of North Carolina. But it changed my life, Gary. Like it's indescribable. And then to see, again, so many others making the decision to take vacation from their work, use vacation time to come volunteer to help others. So I think that's one thing through tragedy, there's a lot of good that can come from the human spirit, and in particular in this country. I don't think people realize.
You know, it makes a difference not only in somebody else's life, but in your life as well. And once you do it, you know, like I've been doing this, you know, it's a long time. I created a foundation. We raise money. I can hire people to do it on a daily basis. I do it for free. I'm the you know, it's kind of, you know, my mission, but it's made such a impact on me over the years trying to help. And I've, been able to go to places like, that are hard hit in disasters, because we have a disaster relief program at the Gary Sinise Foundation. We're a very broad mission at the Gary Sinise Foundation. We do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
A lot of different things. We supported a lot in North Carolina, in Tennessee, Florida. I was down in Florida, toured there. That was a big mess down there.
And I live in Florida, and what I noticed, because
Terrible.
we're good at preparing for hurricanes, right? Great. We are the best for obvious reasons. And because of that, it's almost like people forgot that, well, there's still damage from it. You can be as prepared as possible, but there's still damage. And because it was a different kind of damage than North Carolina, et cetera, I hired a crew and went up to Pinellas County just to kind of see it.
Yeah.
And to show people what's still happening, even though it had been 2 months and FEMA had not done much for anyone. And it's interesting because they said, oh my gosh, yes, we feel for North Carolina. And there's South Carolina, there's Virginia, there's Tennessee, there's Florida, who kind of felt forgotten too. This is not an easy thing.
It's
but
true.
the damage is so widespread.
We did one of our serving things in Pinellas.
Did you really?
At the PD there.
Yeah. By the way, I shouted out, past tense, shouted out, Mission Barbecue, because one of the founders is our dear friend. And I think he had ties to Under Armour at the beginning. So he made his money and on his own started Mission Barbecue. And their motto is, they're the first responders for the first responders. You know that. But for people there, it's really so cool. It's just proof that there are so many people with money who want to give it and want to use it. And I don't know, I'm a glass half full person. And there's a lot of, like I said, a lot of beautiful things that we're learning through people's pain. Yeah. I love that you are so broad with your foundation. Where did the military obsession start with you?
Well, like you, I have, veterans in my family and all of that. So it kind of starts there, and then I got involved with, because on my wife's side of the family is Vietnam veterans, on her side of the family, and World War II and Korea and World War I on my side of the family. And I just, I was impacted, as a young guy, by them, but not as greatly until later when I got involved with, like, working with our wounded after playing Lieutenant Dan in Forrest Gump, or September 11th when we got attacked, and there was a need for me to do something. I just felt a need to get out there and do it. But steps along the way, I think, just different things that happened in the 80s and 90s, and then post 9/11 and all that kind of turned me toward this service life. And the timing was fortunate for me, because after September 11th, when I really was ramping up a lot and trying to reach out to a lot of different organizations and support them and go on USO tours and do all these things, I also hit, I got CSI New York on CBS, and it was a big hit, ran for 9 years. It gave me a lot of resources. The timing of it was pretty perfect for what I was doing on the service life, and also having a public platform every single week on television where I could kind of capitalize on that, and plus, financial resources coming in a way that, I hadn't had before. When you're on television every week for 9 years, it can kind of change a lot of things. So it was a very good timing that happened. And then the more I did it, the more I went on these tours, the more I went overseas, the more I went to the hospitals, the more I did the first responder thing and everything like that, the more I wanted to do.
Really?
And I just kept doing it. And then it kind of snowballed into what became, just clear to me that this was a mission that I was on, and I was going to stay on it. So the next thing to do would be to create my own nonprofit, my own service organization, the Gary Sinise Foundation, which I did in 2010, and we launched it kind of publicly in 2011, started raising money, And now we've raised, between $500 and $600 million over the years.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
it's a lot of money, and we've deployed those resources everywhere to do all kinds of things. I still play a lot of concerts.
Yeah.
I've done almost 600 concerts in 20 years for the military and all of that. So it's a lot, but I love showing my kids what doing something for somebody else,
Yes.
how it can make a difference in your life, not just theirs, but how it can give great purpose to what life is all about. And
Yeah.
so it's time well spent.
Sure. You're like the Hollywood go-to guy, it seems like, with anything related to the military. Whether it's the parade. See, I say that I met him before. I did this. Does that count? I was like,
that was you
"That's-
waving?
Yes, that was me. That's Gary Sinise at the National Memorial Day parade 6 or 7 or 8 years ago. I don't remember, but it was such a cool thing. And I'm like, well, of course he's going to be there, And you are the one that they called to dedicate, was it the World War I Memorial? I mean, stuff at West Point. You're kind of the guy in Hollywood that does it.
Well, I've just been at it a long time, and it's I've just met extraordinary people through all that work. On the military side, or police officers, firefighters, whatever it is, but also that are like me, doing stuff for people, creating their own organizations, and I've supported multiple nonprofits out there that are doing just great things, important things to help. And so I've learned a lot from them. I've been inspired by them, motivated by the people that I see. Let's say I go to the hospital and some family's going through a really tough thing. Somebody's injured or got a really bad injury, but they're pushing through. And then maybe I'll show up again 2 months later and the things are a little better.
Yeah.
And then, another 3 or 4 months later, I'm back in there and they're standing up and walking down the hall. And you see the progress being made, but you also see the determination, the perseverance, the never quit sort of attitude that they have. I'm not going to let this get me down, and that has always motivated me to do a lot. I wrote a book in 2019 called Grateful American, A Journey from Self to Service, and it really kind of tracks that, how, I started to write a book about some of my USO tours or something like that, and then I thought, this is a broader story. I need to sort of figure out, how did I get into all this stuff, So I started kind of tracking it. It turned into kind of an autobiography.
Oh, cool.
But in the book, you meet a lot of inspirational people in my life, people that have motivated me, that I've learned from, that I've watched, that I've met, and that I'm grateful for.
Yeah. That changed your life.
Yeah, no question. So,
but I love that with the kids too, and especially, I think parenting these days, teenagers, preteens on up, is so hard. Obviously, mine are all college age. Yours are a little bit older, but when you're raising them in a household that there's not much that is lacking, right? How do you find that balance? How do you make sure your kids think about others, like you're saying, and the service part, and realizing, I hate the word privilege because I think it's so abused in the wrong way right now, but it is. Like I tell my kids all the time, like, you're so blessed. You don't want for anything. Your college is paid for. And I worry sometimes about making sure that they don't lose perspective. How was that for you when they were little?
yeah, my wife and I are, we're from the Midwest. We grew up in the Chicago area. That's where I grew up. She grew up in a small little town in central Illinois called Pontiac. She had a very, it's a small town, maybe 10,000 in the town. So I guess we had sort of a Midwestern
Just
sort
values.
of background, and we started a theater company. I was 18 years old when we started, and we really had to work hard to build it, and you know, you had to sacrifice a lot. You know, nobody was making any money, all that stuff. We had, it was all bare bones and all of that. So I didn't start doing movies or any of that really until, I mean, really ongoing until I was well into my mid 30s, approaching 40. I mean, so there were a lot of years that were just lean, you know, pretty lean, and that gets into your system pretty good, and you never quite forget that. I think it's probably different for somebody if they're a teenager and they get on television or something, and all of a sudden, you know, life changes, and you kind of think that's normal, or that's, you know, that's the way life is, but it's not. It's usually a uphill climb. Everybody's climbing, trying to work hard. That's what we were doing, and then we achieved some success, and the success started to come right when we were having our babies. You know, my kids were little when I did Forrest Gump, and I had only done a couple of movies before that, so I wasn't well known. You know, I was just starting to be a little bit because of that.
Right.
And so the kids were young, and, you know, yet my wife and I were, you know, we were really focused on just trying to not do too much of the, you know, entertainment business stuff. For, you know, occasionally we'd do something with them, but basically we try to just have them be, just to have them be kids and not worry about all that.
Yeah.
And in fact, they would go to school, and their kids would, you know, because I was starting to be more and more well known at that time, they would get some crap from their friends about it, and they were always sort of mad about that.
Yeah.
They didn't like it.
Just wanted to be kind of normal kids.
Yeah, they did. They just didn't want that kind of attention, or kids to treat them like that. So they got used to it though after a while, and we, you know, I think our kids turned out really well. You know, they're great, and my wife is she's just a very kind and funny and loving sort of person.
I have to say that I was not aware until more recently how much you've been through with your son, the loss of your son, your wife battling cancer, and then there were other things happening at the same time. Was it another family member that had a stroke? I mean, everything happening at once. How are you today?
Yeah, it was challenging 5 or 6 years for sure. I mean, my dad had a stroke. That was tough. My brother-in-law died of cancer in our guest house. Then my dad had a stroke. Then in the summer of 2018, my wife was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. And I mean, that, you know, that was a real jolt. You know, we're going to fight it, and we're going to do. Well, what do we got to do? You know, we dig in and fight. And so we're starting to get into that fight, and then our son had been having some pain in his tailbone, and just having trouble just sitting down. And the discomfort got so bad that he was just having trouble sleeping and everything. And
he was how old at this time?
27. Okay. And so my wife had several spine surgeries. She really had this bad osteoporosis and arthritis and all this. And on top of the cancer. So she goes to, she has surgery to remove 19 lymph nodes. She didn't have to lose her breasts, but they took 19 nodes out, and there were 5 really infected. So she had to go through chemo and radiation. So she started her first chemo treatment, and it knocked her socks off. I mean, she was so sick to the point where I had to take her to the ER. And then I got her back home after the ER, and our son Mac had been, just complaining about this pain. So I asked Moira's spine surgeon if he would take a look at Mac, see if he could figure out why he was having so much pain. And he put him in the CT scanner. And I remember sitting at home with my wife. She had just come back from being in the hospital from the chemo treatment, and we're talking, well, we got to have 7 more treatments. How are we going to deal with that? And, what are we going to do to get through the next treatments? We're sitting outside, and I get a call from Moira's spine surgeon, and he said Mac has a tumor on his sacrum, and it's the size of an orange. And I'm sitting here with my wife talking about her chemo treatments, and now he's telling me my son has a tumor this big.
And the sacrum, that's...
The sacrum is tailbone.
That's the tailbone.
Yeah,
okay.
so I'm like, holy cow. And he said, I put him in the CT scanner, now I sent him over to get an MRI. And I said, where is he getting the MRI? I'm going to go down there. So I went down, met Mac. When he got out of the MRI machine, we went back to the surgeon so he could look at the MRI scan, and you could see this big, ugly tumor wrapped around his tailbone. And I'm like, I'm kind of in shock. And he says, I think this is a tumor called chordoma. It starts in the spine. It'll either grow in the base of the spine or the top of the spine, up here. And he said, and this is a very, very highly experienced, very excellent spine surgeon at Cedars. And he said, I've seen it before. I haven't really had a lot of experience with it before. But there's a doctor over at UCLA who's had a lot of experience with it, who just happens to have moved from Mass General in Boston to UCLA. I'm going to call him up and get you in to see him. So a little bit later, we get in. They do a biopsy on Mac and everything. And sure enough, it's this cancer called chordoma, which affects, it's extremely rare. Maybe 300 people per year in the U.S. are diagnosed with 300, 300 maybe. And quite often a surgeon, an experienced surgeon, will be able to get in there and remove that tumor and take it out, and they'll get everything. And it'll be cured. It'll be gone. They can actually remove that tumor and people go on with their lives.
Because of the location, is it more isolated?
Yeah, his was a big ugly tumor wrapped around his sacrum, so it was entwined with the nerves and all that stuff. They went in on September, and I think it was about the 27th of September 2018, and did the initial surgery and removed it. And it affected a lot of his nerves. He lost feeling down here and all that. But he was able to kind of recover, and he went back. He was working for the Gary Sinise Foundation. He was able to go back to work. Then, but he was going to have to come back and get scanned like every 3 months. Let's keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
He went back to get scanned. It looked like there was an infection in there. So they put him back in the operating room. They cleaned out the infection. Put him on antibiotics. He had to walk around with a pump, pumping antibiotics into him for 6 weeks. And then in May of 2018, we went back for another scan, and they said it came back. So they didn't, they
Was that expected? I mean, is that what usually happens with chordoma?
Like I said, about 70% of the time it gets cured. About 30%. Which, if 30% of 300 is, what is that? 90 people or something. It's a small percentage where it metastasizes and comes back and spreads. And sadly, that's what we got hit with, which was we were told that it came back and we were going to have to start doing treatments, on oncology. So, I mean, the surgeon knew what he was going to tell us that day. So as soon as he told us, he opened the door and an oncologist walked in who was waiting to come in and talk to us about what he was going to recommend we do. So Max started drugs, tumors started spreading. He had more surgeries on his spine to remove more tumors that were spreading. He became more and more disabled as time went on, and he fought for 5.5 years, about 4.5 of those years, or roughly, a little more, were doing chemo and radiation and additional surgeries. And each time he would do another surgery, he'd become more disabled. The cancer would spread. He lost. He lost. He was paralyzed from the chest down. We had to get a hospital bed for him at home. Thankfully, prior to all that craziness, my wife went into remission and was, the radiation and the chemo that she did and the surgery kind of put that cancer.
Okay.
I kind of stopped that cancer.
Because her treatments were brutal.
Yeah, they were.
And
yeah.
so it's all the same.
And she did 35 radiation treatments. So at the same time she's doing that, I have Mac in the hospital too, going through surgeries for his tumor. And it was, that was a tough period. But thankfully she was, we got good news about her, and then we could focus on Mac and just tried to help him through. He kept working for the Gary Sinise Foundation until probably the end of 2019.
Okay.
He was going to have to go back in. These tumors would spread, and he had to go back in for another surgery on his spine, and then he had to go in for surgery. There were tumors now on his neck, on his cervical spine. He had to go back in. Every time it would kind of disable him, and he'd lose a little bit more. But Sage, he was just the most, he's a very faithful sort of Catholic guy who was just sort of found this way to kind of accept what he was going through and kind of deal with it in the most kind of courageous and sort of graceful way, And he was a musician, drummer. He couldn't play drums anymore, do any of that. Composer. He went to USC Music School. He kind of had to put all that aside because he's fighting cancer. He ended up by the time he died, he had done 25 different cancer-fighting drugs.
25.
25 over that period, yeah. And nothing was working. We'd try something, and then that didn't work, and we just kept looking for something else, because with this particular cancer, there's no drugs. No companies are developing drugs to fight chordoma, because
There's
90
so few
people. Yeah, 90 people are diagnosed with metastatic chordoma per year, so they're not developing drugs for it. Thankfully, though, there was a foundation that was started by somebody who had chordoma, and he calls it the Chordoma Foundation, and their whole mission is to find a cure 24/7. They're the only ones out there with a full-time mission to find a cure. So they are tapped into all the trials, all the research that's going on, all the who's developing what, the scientists, anybody who's focusing on trying to find solutions for chordoma. They are like this, this source of information that was really, really helpful. And they're raising money, you know, for research and development and everything. So they were very helpful to us throughout that whole period. And we would find different drugs that they thought, you know, they've seen this drug work a little bit on certain patients, you know, so this might be worth a try, and so we would go and try it, you know. And we did that, you know, like I said, we did 25 different drugs over a 4-year period, and we never got the success. And you could see the tumors, you know. I mean, there were a lot that you couldn't see, but you could see them. And so, you know, there's a big one right here.
When you say see them, you mean
popping out of his
so coming
body.
up.
Yeah, there was a giant tumor on his chest right here. And so we would watch and there was one on his nose, and there was one on his eyebrow, and you could see them, and you could see that they weren't getting smaller. So thankfully, we had an oncologist at St. John's. We went through 2 or 3 or 4 different oncologists. And the one at St. John's was very good because he was the kind of guy you need for a rare orphan cancer.
Okay.
Because quite often they'll say, I don't know what, you know, I just don't know what to do. And he was the kind of guy who would say, Mac, as long as you want to keep fighting this out, I'll keep trying to come up with something to try.
Wow.
And that's what you want, because you want hope, you know. You don't want to hear, I don't know what to do. And he never told us, I don't know what to do. He said, there's one thing that, you know, I've heard about this, you know, let's try this thing. Or, you know, he came over with, you know, sea cucumbers from New Zealand. And I mean, he,
whatever.
You know, I mean, he came up with, you know, because he had, you know, been talking to different companies that are trying different things on different cancers. And so he, you know, and he had some other chordoma patients there too. And so he was very, very good. And that's one of the reasons, you know, I bought a house out here in Tennessee in probably 2021. And I moved my foundation out here in 2021. But we stayed in the Santa Monica St. John's system because I just was hesitant to move Mac away from the doctor there who was giving us a lot of hope. But eventually it was time for us to come, and Mac wanted to be with his sisters, and it was very difficult to move him. You know, he's paralyzed. We had to get a medical transport that they would lift him up and put him on a gurney and put him on a flat thing in the airplane and all that kind of stuff. I had to figure that out. Thankfully, you know, I've had success in the TV business. I could do that. But kind of difficult challenges just to get Mac out here.
Just to get him here.
But the last year of his life, he said to me, and this is how cool this guy was. I mean, he knew, you know, we were in a lot of pain just watching him go through it and everything. But unless he was in a lot of pain or just felt really sick, he would not kind of moan and groan about anything.
You didn't complain?
He was always looking to what's he going to do today or what can he do. And he hadn't done music for a long time until, and then at the beginning of 2023, he wanted to go back and finish a piece of music that he'd written at USC that he never finished. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he wrote it at college. And he asked me if I thought some of my band members would help him kind of flesh it out, work on it with him. And of course, they loved Mac, and Mac would play with us. You know, he was an excellent drummer. He would sit in when my drummer couldn't be there. Mm-hmm. And then I said, "Go for it." And he started working on this piece. And that was in February of 2023. An old buddy of his from college named Oliver Schnee was a composer. Just happened to call Mac out of the blue. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. And Mac played a little recording that he had my piano player play of the music that he'd written. And he played it for Oliver, and Oliver loved it, and they went to work to finish it. And they went into the studio July of 2023 and
Okay.
recorded this amazing piece of music called Arctic Circles.
Yes.
And it's on his YouTube channel,
Yes.
Max Sinise YouTube. It's a very emotional, very moving piece.
That is the word. Those are the words. It was very emotional. I'd like to clip that in here to let everybody listen to it, because I was taken aback. I don't know what I expected, but it makes
You watched it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes you. I was still
Yeah.
when I was listening to it. Like, it is. That's a gift.
It's 5 minutes long, not a long piece, but it sweeps you away with the melodies that Mac created. And Oliver did a great job working with him to arrange for the orchestra and everything, and it really is a beautiful piece. Once they recorded that piece, Mac just wanted to do more. He wanted to make a whole record. So he came up with a bunch of other, he had other original pieces that he had Oliver work on to arrange. And then he wanted to play harmonica. He had taught himself harmonica in the hospital bed. He couldn't play drums anymore. His right hand was kind of paralyzed. He couldn't move his fingers, but he could lift up his arm. His left arm, there was a tumor here that fractured his shoulder, so he couldn't do this, but it didn't impair his fingers.
Yeah.
So he had fingers on his left hand, and he had his right hand was an arm, and he could kind of hold the harmonica up, and he taught himself harmonica. So there are harmonica pieces on the record. He created the record. It's called Resurrection and Revival.
Yes.
And
Why do you think that was the name?
well, a couple reasons that Mac named it Resurrection and Revival. He was resurrecting and reviving this piece of music that was old,
Okay.
but he was reviving it. He was making it new again. And that's the theme of the record. And if you look at some of the pieces that are on the record, there's a couple of other old pieces that he wrote. There's a song like Amazing Grace, great classic, that is an old song that he kind of did his own version with the harmonica on it and sort of resurrected it, revived it a little bit, and made something old new again.
Yeah.
And that's the theme of that first record. And it's beautiful. I mean, he heard it all. It was all mixed and finished, and it went to press. They were pressing vinyls of it the week that he died. And
The week that he died is when they were.
it actually went to press. So he saw,
Did
he
you see
designed the album cover, he designed everything, and he saw it kind of online, but he never got to hold the record and actually see it. He heard all the music, though. In fact, I went on television 2 days before Mac was having a lot of trouble, and we had to call the ambulance and take him to the hospital. I went on the Laura Ingraham show, and Raymond Arroyo was hosting for her that night, and it was December 29th.
23.
And, yeah, December 29th, 2023. I had just out of the blue, Raymond's a friend, and I said, I want you to hear this music. I sent him the video, and he called me up and he said, would you come on and talk about this music? This is great. And so I talked to Mac, and Mac said, do it, Dad. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Really?
And so I went on Raymond's show on the 29th of December, they sent a satellite truck out to my house. I got in the satellite truck. Mac and my wife were in the house watching live while I'm in there talking about his music, and Raymond's playing Arctic Circles on national television. And I walked into the house, and Mac was just beaming. I mean, he was just so happy. His music was on national television. He never thought that in a million years. But there it was on national television. And the following day, we had to take him to the hospital. And then he died 6 days later, which was, you know, very hard.
Was it in the hospital?
Yeah, you know, we went in the hospital, and we had done this many, many times. I go in the hospital, stay with him in the chair next to the bed and all that stuff. But then we get him through it and bring him home, you know. And we'd done that so many times that that's where my head was at. You know, we're going to get him in there, we're going to stabilize him, get him through this and bring him home. And so I was constantly in that mode until the last, I don't know, 24, 48 hours where things were getting harder and harder for him, and he was having trouble breathing, and just got more and more difficult.
Were you able to say as a father what you needed to say? That was he able to receive words and love at the end?
He knew. He knew. But I didn't stop being in that mindset, you know, until I couldn't talk to him anymore. And then you start, that's when you start thinking, oh, damn, you know, why didn't I say this, or why didn't I ask him that, or something? But I didn't, my being was not allowing me to go there, you know.
Yeah.
Kind of go
Sorry.
to that. Yeah.
Well, but you're the dad. You're the dad, and
I
you're
wasn't
tough.
going to give up.
No.
You know, and I wasn't going to, like, okay, well, geez, you know, I better have that talk with him, you know. I was just always, I mean, the night before, I was giving him, I was feeding him his pills, you know. I was trying to get him to eat, you know, and all of that. And I, you know, when I woke up the next morning next to him, you know, it was clear, you know. I've told this story about the pulmonary doctor who was dealing with a lot of the lung stuff and all this, because he's really having trouble with his lungs. There were a lot of tumors in there, and that was really getting harder and harder for him to breathe. So up until the first days in there, the pulmonary guy was coming in. He was saying, well, we think we could maybe try this and we could maybe try that. Solutions were, options were being given to us. And I remember him coming in that morning about 6 a.m. and I was just sitting there, and Mac had this St. Augustine prayer book. And I was just sitting there with it and praying, and pulmonary guy came in and just sat down and just looked at me, you know. And he didn't have to say anything, you know, because he got there, you know, that morning. He got up to speed with the nurses. This is what happened that last night. This is what we're going through. And he knew where we were at, and he came in and sat down, and he just looked at me, and I looked at him, and that's when I asked him if I should start making phone calls. And he shook his head. So I started making calls to the family and telling them, you know, I wanted them to come to the hospital. We called the priest from the local church, and he came. And all the family that was in Tennessee, they all were there. You know, and Mac died at 3:25. In the afternoon.
January 5th.
January 5th, yeah. But you know, I often say this too, because it's very sad. You know, anybody who's had to go through that knows how sad it is. And I feel for everybody that goes through this. You know, we all have loss in our lives. But I will say that Raymond, I asked Raymond to send me the clip from the show. Because I told him, I said, I got to the hospital with Mac, you know, and he was in intensive care and in emergency room, all this stuff. I was just trying to get through all that. But the following day, I sent Raymond a text and said, Raymond, can you send me the clip from the show? And he did, and I showed Mac, and he just was beaming. Mm-hmm. And then I sent it to him, and he had it on his phone. And all the nurses that were coming in, he would just be showing them the clip.
He's so proud.
And he you want to hear my music? You want to see this? And he would show it to them, and then they would go out and go to his YouTube channel, because there were only little snippets on the Raymond show. To see the whole thing and hear the whole thing, you had to go to his YouTube channel. So they would leave the room, go to his YouTube channel, watch it, come back in with tears in their eyes, you know, and he would just smile, and he was kind of beaming through it. So that's what I mean by those first 3 to 4 days. I was seeing him. He was still smiling. He was talking. I was having orange chicken with him, eating, and he was watching Seinfeld with me, and you know, I was in that mindset that we were, you know, we're going to get him through it and get him home, and then it changed, you know. But his vinyl record that he made, about 6 weeks after he died, I went ahead and posted a story. Most people that know me or know of me, you know, on the foundation side, our donors and just people that we help and stuff, most of them did not know that I'd been fighting this fight with Mac for 6 years. Yeah. You know, we never talked about it publicly, but I felt like we have such loyal donors, and there are a bunch of donors that went for Mac to donate to the Cordoma Foundation because of him and all that, that I had to say something. So I wrote a story and we posted it. Mm-hmm. And we also put, you can order this record. This is the record that Mac made in the final months of his life. And you can order Resurrection and Revival at the Gary Sinise Foundation website. Well, we got, you know, I had only ordered like 500 records, and within 24 hours there were 1,000 orders for the vinyl.
No way.
Yeah, there were 1,000, and they kept coming in, and messages kept coming into the foundation, and people started donating to the foundation in his honor, and then they would go to the Cordoma Foundation and donate to the Cordoma Foundation in Mac's honor. That first record, Resurrection and Revival, has sold almost 5,000 copies now.
No way.
Just vinyl. That's the vinyl record. You can get it online. You can download it too, but
what a blessing.
That's a lot.
What a blessing that he got to hear, that he got to witness and listen to his own music on your friend's show. Like,
Yeah.
what a blessing. And I'm picturing at the end, holding up the phone for everybody that came in the hotel room to say, see, like that, because that's what defined him, it sounds like, was his music. That was his happy place.
The
and for it to-
timing of everything was like, we finished the record. On December 28th, we had a party at our house with Oliver and his mom and dad, the people that had worked on the record, the video guys that had made the videos, and we had a kind of viewing party for all the videos and everything. And Mac was in a lot of pain that night, I remember. And we had to kind of lay him down in his wheelchair, but he was watching, and he had this big smile on his face as we put the videos up. Then the next day, I go on television, show the country his music, and then the next day he goes into the hospital. But he finished what he wanted to do. He set out to do something, he accomplished it, and so at the end of his life, he knew he was proud, he was happy, he was at peace. You know, he was just this kind of beautiful guy who was accepting, he was faithful. You know, he showed us what real courage under fire is.
Yeah.
He had a beautiful, there's a St. Augustine quote, "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you." And Mac's heart, he was not restless, you know. He was at peace, you know, at the end, for sure.
Has that helped?
All of us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Knowing that he was at peace.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, it was a peaceful thing. We were all there with him, and it was peaceful when I knew he was. You know, just the journey of that last year was incredible. He set out to do this thing, and he did it, and he completed it, and he accomplished it. And he didn't get to see the results of it, you know, kind of be embraced by people listening to it or go into his YouTube channel. Well, actually, he did see the YouTube channel because we put those up, and,
Yeah.
and, you know, he was showing some of those videos to everybody, and he was content. So it just, you know, the last year of his life, in some ways, was one of the best years of his life because he,
Interesting.
even though he couldn't move very well and, you know, all of that, he was just this resilient guy. You can see it in his face when you go to his YouTube channel and you see those videos of him in the wheelchair and just experiencing the music. On one of those recording days, you can see a video there where we're at Blackbird here, because we moved in September. We did the recordings in July in LA at Sunset Sound, which is a very, very famous, well-known recording studio. Like everybody, the Beatles, I mean, you know, people recorded in there. It was very well known, and we were recording in there. And then we moved to Nashville, and he wanted to do more. He wanted to create an album. So we went into 2 studios here in Nashville. One is called Ocean Way, and we did a bunch of work in there with the orchestra and everything. Then we went into a studio called Blackbird, and Blackbird is, you know, every country star has been in Blackbird. Big, you know, very well-known studio. Well, we're in there. We're having a day with my band in there. My band's on the record, and we're recording all this stuff with Mac. And in walks Harry Connick.
Oh my gosh.
He's recording in Studio A over here or whatever.
No big deal.
Yeah, and he heard we were there, and he came in, and you can see it on the YouTube channel. Harry just sitting there, and it happened to be Mac's 33rd birthday.
No way.
Yeah, it was November 10th, and we're in there with my band on his birthday. We had a birthday singing and cake and recording, and it was one of the great, great days. And Harry comes in, and Harry wants to hear the music. So Mac and Oliver start playing them the music. And Harry's just sitting there listening to it, and he's talking to Mac about music, and I'm over here just watching. You know, I'm just watching those two guys talk music, and Harry just really inspired by the music. And it's all caught on camera. I mean, it's,
That's a blessing.
The cameras were rolling, and Harry was cool, and he was just loving it, loving being there, and Mac was feeling so good. So there's a lot of great stuff on the YouTube channel to see, along with a whole other album. Because after he died, I started searching his files. I searched his iPhone, his iPad, his Dropbox files, all of this, and I found all this additional music that he wrote and tucked away. Some I'd heard because some of it he'd written for the foundation, for my foundation. And we used it in some videos and stuff. But all this other stuff I hadn't heard. And I was like, holy cow. Why didn't, you know, I just wish that he had played some of this stuff for me. But he'd written it a while ago and wasn't thinking about it or stuff. And I started playing it, and I was just like, this is so great. So I'm not one to kind of like forget about it. You know, I'm like, there's enough here for another record. And so I went to work, calling Oliver up, his buddy, and saying, Oliver, you got to come back to Nashville. I got to play you a bunch of stuff, and because I want to do another record. And so we went to work on Resurrection and Revival Part 2. And now that has sold over 1,000 vinyls already, and that's out on digital as well. And it's beautiful music. Between the two records, there's 30 pieces of music that Mac wrote that are on there.
What's the channel?
It's Mac Sinise YouTube. I mean, if you just look up Mac Sinise on YouTube, you'll find it.
I found it, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Like I said, emotional, and I mean, I think with many arts you can learn and you can finesse, but there's some things you can't teach, and that's what it feels like. As someone I'm not obviously a musician, but I can feel that, and it is definitely worth a couple of visits to that.
There's a lot of powerful, emotional stuff. I mean,
do you go? Do you click on it often? Do you click on it often? Do you go to visit the?
I have it. Yeah. I'll put it on in my car, digital. But we have a turntable, and I'll put it on. I'll check out the videos here and there. In fact, I just posted one of the videos this morning. That's on Part 2.
On Part 2.
And it's this very patriotic sort of Aaron Copland-esque like anthem. And Mac wanted to write something very patriotic. I found it in a file that said patriotic. That's all it said. And he called it The Rise. And I think he may have been writing it for my foundation. We have a program at the foundation called Rise. Restoring Independence, Supporting Empowerment. And it's a program focused on wounded service members and first responders, people that have been paralyzed, people that have lost limbs, severe burns, all that kind of stuff. We provide, especially adapted housing for them, mobility devices, wheelchairs and track chairs, that kind of thing, adapted vehicles, all that kind of stuff. And he may have been writing that to be used at some point by the foundation, but it never was, and I had never heard it. And he wrote it all on his computer because, we couldn't afford to go into, hire a bunch of musicians, an orchestra and all that. So Mac did it all on his computer. You can do that, get samples. You have the violins, the cellos, the timpani, the snares, bass, whatever it is. And so he would create a lot of this music on his computer. He would just write it all and just lay it all down. And those are the things that I played for Oliver. I said, Oliver, you got to hear this original music.
Did anyone know? You did know. Did anyone know that he had all of this saved?
I knew he had a little bit because he had written some for a documentary that my foundation video guys did.
Okay.
On kind of my history with supporting veterans. They kind of tracked the history of it. And there's music in it. And Mac wrote about 75% of the music that's in this documentary. The documentary is called Always Do a Little More. And I'm always kind of saying that. So that's why they named it that. And Mac wrote about 75% of the music, and he did it all on his computer. I found some of that, but then I found other stuff that he'd done on his computer as well that I'd never heard before.
What was that like
so-
to listen to for the first time?
Kind of stunning, you know. I'm like, holy cow, you know. Why did I never hear it, you know? And Mac was a really sort of humble guy. He wasn't always sort of pushing his ideas on, you know, listen to this, you know, there's my thing, you know. He would just kind of quietly go about his business, you know, and he did that and tucked a lot of this music away. And then I found it, and it's just beautiful stuff. So I asked Oliver, because he had written it on his computer and everything, we had to transpose all the string parts, all the cellos, all, you know, all the instruments, transpose it all, get it off the computer, write it all out so it could be played by a live orchestra and all that. And Oliver did that, and then we expanded some things. You know, I asked Oliver, let's lengthen this part, play on this theme, but broaden it out and all that, and he did a fantastic job.
Wow.
And he had worked with Mac really closely on the first record. So I feel like Oliver was like really in sync. Mac would like this, you know, if I approach it this way, and Mac would like this. And so we went about recording all that, getting it all down, and new videos from part 2 are also on Mac Sinise YouTube. So you can see, and like I said, I posted one this morning for this piece called The Rise, which is, it's like a Copland-esque anthem, American anthem, with a, you know, trumpet, single trumpet playing, strings, timpanis and all that. It's beautiful. There's a lot of great music there.
How did your faith help? You're Catholic.
Yeah.
Mac was a strong believer as well, from what I read. How
Yeah.
did that help all of you?
A lot. I mean, it's helped us through a lot of difficult moments. I remember, this is even before I was actually confirmed into the church myself. September 11th, 2001, my wife had been confirmed into the church. She went through and I write about this in my book, so it's not something that I haven't talked about. She went through a difficult alcohol period, and that got very dark and very scary and everything like that. When she came out of that, thankfully on the other side, and she's been sober for 27 years now. She, you know, her mother had been raised Catholic, and she kind of felt this calling to go back to the Catholic Church. So she did, and then we, you know, because she did, we started going to the Catholic Church, and I would go, and our kids started going to Catholic school and all of that. I became a Catholic in 2010, was confirmed into the church in 2010. She was a full 10 years before that. But I remember even though I wasn't officially confirmed into the church was so helpful during the September 11th period. I remember just it being a sanctuary of peace. Everybody, you know, and that was the case for a lot of people that were trying to process all the horror that we saw on that day, people jumping out of buildings, and, you know, just one horrible thing after another. And I remember going to the church and just hearing the priest kind of say, this has been a tough week. And I don't even know if he actually said this as well, or if I just heard it, but it was a call to service that would be something that would help our country through this if everybody reached out to help each other, you know. And I heard that, and that's when I started raising my hand and going on tours, going to the war zones, going into the hospitals with very, very badly banged up people. And the more I did that, the more that broken heart started to heal and the church just became a very important part. Service is a very, it's an element of the church, and a very important one. And then, so I'm carrying that with me through all I'm doing with the foundation and going into the hospitals, and I'm seeing, really difficult stuff. But, when you walk into the hospital and you see somebody standing over somebody who's all burned up or, missing limbs or whatever, difficult, very hard stuff. But you carry in this, this element of they're there to help heal, and you see the difference that you make when you come in. You forget about, like, what am I going to see when I walk in the door? I remember the first times I would do it. I was just apprehensive. Am I going to see some really difficult stuff that I'm not going to be able to manage? And after the first hospital visit, I walked out of that hospital and I'd seen some really horrifying injuries. And families just standing there praying and waiting it out to see is he going to wake up, all this stuff. And I left remembering all the smiles on the faces of all the people in the rooms, that were there when I left and walked out of the room, and that carried me to the next one and the next one and the next one. And I've done that hundreds and hundreds of times over the years. And I know our faith is a strong component of that. Service is a great healer, and that's something I say because I've experienced it, I experienced it after my heart was broken with September 11th and all that had gone on. I've experienced it throughout the years with very difficult things that our military has faced and our Gold Star families and all of this. And I've experienced it through the cancer battle that my wife faced, that my son faced, the stroke of my dad, the cancer battle from my brother-in-law, a lot of that stuff, and it's helped me. Yeah. Have I fallen down on the ground, and just wondered why all this was going on? Yeah, you can't help but do that. But God just reaches down and goes, okay, stand back up, get going.
If I've found in different ways, yes, he does. If you're willing to receive it, if you're willing to listen and trust, which my friends who struggle with that, including myself, it's like, okay, I'm here, I'm listening. What the heck is going on over here and why? I feel like that's the hardest part is to maintain the faith when there's tragedy in front of your eyes.
Well, it is, no doubt. Some people have asked, how are you able to just keep doing all this other stuff that you're doing when this was going on at home all the time? My son's becoming more and more crippled and paralyzed, and now he can't get out of bed. Now I have to have round-the-clock nursing care and all these different things that were happening. But what also helped me to deal with that, and knowing that him and my wife, and they wanted me to continue to do what I was doing. And I would go out and go to the hospitals and visit wounded folks, or deal with families of our fallen heroes and heartbreak there and all that, playing for the troops at hospitals with my band or whatever. And I could see, and I would get energized by that, and the service is a great healer. So I'm energized by the service work over here, and I take that back home, and it helps me through. And it did that over and over. You know, Mac would not have wanted me to stop doing any of that. He loved all the foundation stuff. He loved my band. He loved the fact that I was playing, and he wanted me to continue doing it. It got a little tough sometimes because especially the COVID years, I'd go out on a tour or something like that, come back, have COVID, and I'd have to go upstairs for 10 days.
Yeah.
And they're down there and they need my help, and I'm locked up in the room upstairs.
Because you went to help.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's
and I did that. Gosh, it was. Can't remember. I think it was 2022. I went out, came back, got COVID, went out again, came back, COVID again. So I'm stuck in the room like 2 trips in a row.
Yeah.
And then I finally had to say to the foundation,
Just can't.
I'm taking 6 months and I'm not going to travel.
But you were also, you stopped acting, right?
Yeah.
Was that,
yeah.
and that was, the
I did-
decision behind that was to be present, right? To be able to help and take care.
Yeah. The last acting job I did was on a TV series called for Netflix called 13 Reasons Why. I just had a small part, and it sort of was easy one to manage because they were shooting in San Francisco. I was in Los Angeles. Easy 1-hour flight up there. I would go up there on a Sunday, shoot Monday morning, and then fly home. So I was gone less than 24
Okay.
hours. So it fit just right. But then it became clear that, when Mac, that was at the end of 2019, and then the beginning of 2020, Mac had just started a podcast for the Gary Sinise Foundation. He was starting to be concerned that with what he was going through, he might not be able to go to the office the way he wanted to. So he wanted something to do from home, and he
Smart.
thought, I'm going to do a podcast. So he started recording people, and he recorded me. The first 2 podcasts he did, and then he ended up back in the hospital. And that year, 2020, became the really difficult year. He was in the hospital 8 months out of the year.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and that was rough. He had multiple surgeries and difficulties, and so he couldn't do much, So I just didn't go back to work, and I would go out and do the concert thing here and there, the foundation stuff, but was trying to stay home as much as possible, just to help.
What a huge blessing to have been able to do that.
No question.
Priceless.
We always thank God, thank Hollywood, because I had some good success on television.
Yeah.
It allowed me I could afford to take that time off and just do what I needed to do.
And I can only imagine as a kid who's, I'm a lot older, certainly I'm in my 50s, but I'm so proud of what my parents have done, how they did it, most importantly. I imagine your son was, and I believe is, so proud of how you have chosen to live your life, how you chose to do Hollywood. You did that your way when nobody else was doing it. And still, it's interesting here, you'll hear a little blurb about this person or that person, and they might not think this way. Like, I don't know, you've chosen the harder right, in my opinion, in many ways.
Thank you.
And I know he must be still so proud.
He was a great guy. I mean, I miss him more than I can even articulate,
Yeah.
And we all do. We have a very strong family. His sisters, he was very close with both his sisters. They're wonderful. they're moms, you know. Sophie has 3 and Ella has 2, and we're hoping for some more there. But they're just the most wonderful daughters, and my wife is amazing, and we've, you know, I was the one in the family who kind of the air traffic controller, you know. I'm dealing with all the medical stuff over here. I'm dealing with the doctors, the appointments, what are the drugs, you know, where the new research, you know. I'm always, you know, what do I need to do? I got to get him in the van. I got to go here, you know, all these things. And so I was doing that kind of thing, which I needed to do. And my wife, who's, you know, she's had a lot of physical problems herself, multiple spine surgeries and all these things.
Gosh.
So she's a bit disabled herself, but she would spend just countless hours with Mac in his room, watching television, reading, you know, having long talks. She helped, you know, she helped him in so many ways, you know, and the daughters, you know, so supportive, and the grandkids, you know, he loved his little nieces and nephew and all of that. So we, you know, we had a strong family. We pulled together, and it's nothing. I'm writing a book with him at the center, and I just want to tell his story a bit more, because he's, you know, inspired me and motivated me and been a real, showed me what, you know, how gracefully one can kind of accept what has happened, you know. And he did that with real courage.
It'll be 40, if I did the math right, 44 years this year, your 44th anniversary with you and Maura? 45 years?
Yes, you're right. How did you know
81.
that? 81? You got
Yeah,
that.
it takes a minute
Yes,
for me.
you're right. Yes.
But I'm wondering if, I mean, obviously you've set a beautiful example for your kids with your marriage. And to be so strong, even when times are good, marriage is tough sometimes.
Sure, yeah.
But then when you go through this, a child and the loss of your child, while your wife is dealing with that, and as a mother, she's probably not thinking about herself, thinking about her son, thinking about her husband. Yeah. How has your marriage, I hope, strengthened through this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, we've been through so much.
Yeah.
Over the years. I mean, we got together in '76, so we're looking at, what's that, 50 years?
50, almost.
You know, you know, we were in our early 20s when we met and got together, and we were working on a theater company together. She was an actress in the theater company, Steppenwolf, and I was one of the founders. And you know, we went through ups and downs and ins and outs and crazy, you know, all that stuff. Then we moved to California. I got a movie deal to direct movies, and so I took the deal. We moved out to California, and we looked at each other one day and said, "Let's have a baby." And so Sophie was born in
9 months later,
88. It was quick. Yeah, 1988, and then Mac was born in 1990, and then Ella was born in '92. And you know, we've had our ups and downs and ins and outs, you know, crazy stuff that families go through and all that. But you know, we weathered those moments, and now, you know, I mean, Moira and I we're just loving our grandkids and missing our son and loving our daughters, and you know, Moira's feels very, very good because without her and her willingness to allow me to do all this stuff, you know, traveling around and, you know, troop stuff, and if she would not have been supportive of that, or she was just like, "You've traveled too much, you stay home now, you know, no more of that." She never did that at all. She has Vietnam veterans in her family.
Yeah.
Her 2 brothers. Her sister was in the Army, her sister's husband, her nephew. She has a great respect, and also a lot of compassion for what happened to our Vietnam veterans. So when I decided to really take up the charge and go out there and do something to help, you know, not only our veterans, but but our active duty folks in hospitals and military bases and all that stuff, she was fully 100% engaged and on board. And I was traveling a lot. There's a web page on our website, the Gary Sinise Foundation. It's the founder page, and if you look at it, there's kind of it says volunteer service history, and it tracks all of that going back to the 80s. It'll track all the military support and all those different things along the way, trip after trip after trip. It's got them all. And
All that you've done.
when you look at the volunteer service history page and you scroll through it, you'll just scroll through years of just being gone all the time, you know. And I remember sitting down with my son when I was trying to get him involved with the foundation. I said, I want to show you the website. And we started going through the website, and then I punched on that page and started scrolling through it. And he's looking at it, and I'm looking at it, and I said, gee. I looked at him, I said, I was not home a lot when you were little. And he said, yeah, that's right, Dad. Because when they were little, I was doing movies.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, that was the prime, kind of the beginning of your career, and that at that level.
Yeah, I was doing movies. I'd be gone doing this and that. And then you get into September 11th and all that, and the foundation work and going out for the troops. And it's just all these trips and all of that. And it's a lot, but, you know, I wouldn't have been able to do it without the family saying, okay, go do it, Dad. And so they, you know, the fact that the Gary Sinise Foundation exists is a big credit to all of them. It wouldn't have existed had I not gone off and done all that, and I wouldn't have gone off and done all that if they hadn't been supportive of it.
Yeah.
And they would. So they're a big part of the Gary Sinise Foundation and the mission and what we've done there. And my wife has been, you know, behind me all the way.
You have won every award pretty much in several different areas, acting, TV, film, all of the military, the beautiful volunteering that you've done, and continuing to help. It's millions of people between hands-on stuff, your music. You're an incredible husband and a great father.
Well,
father to
you
three.
have to,
Well, listen,
even though I just said my wife loves me and everything. I
she's
don't know.
44 years. She's stuck with you, so
She
you
has,
must
yeah.
be halfway good. I'll say that. And an
we
incredible
made it.
father to three, and grandfather now. And you're writing a book which I can't wait to read, with your son at the center of it.
Yeah.
What? Oh no, I don't even know my final question. It's like you've done so much, you've accomplished so much. I know you still have goals, that we all do. You're going to be 70 this year?
Next month. Yeah.
Oh, it's March 17th. That's
Right. Yeah.
Look at you. You look great.
Just reminded me.
Sorry. 44 years, 70. I'm on it with my math. Yeah. I mean, how do you want people to remember you? Everybody says Lieutenant Dan, and of course all the, but like, and you got a long way to go. But there's so much that you've done and given to people.
You know, right now I'm hoping that one of the things, you know, we built this foundation is almost 15 years old now. It's not a family foundation where I've taken all the profits and put it into the foundation. I've taken a fair amount of profits, but it's a public organization, so we take the American people help us do what we're doing. I would like, you know, one thing, I would like to see that continue for many years and to help people. I mean, that's what it's there for. It's there to lift people up and to help them through difficult times, to make sure that we know that they know our first responders, our veterans, our active duty, the families of our fallen heroes, our wounded, all these people that we're working with, that they know that we don't take what they do for granted, and that we appreciate what they do. If we didn't have people that were willing to raise their hand and go defend us, we'd be in trouble. We'd have to be drafting people, and then you'd have a bunch of people that didn't want to be there and, shouldn't be there and all that stuff. I'm glad we have an all volunteer service, and so I'm appreciative of people that are willing to do it, And I appreciate my freedom. I know where it comes from. I know it has to be fought for. It has to be protected. I appreciate somebody who's willing to, like I had to go to the hospital recently. I was having having a gallbladder attack, and it was so painful. It was so crazy that I couldn't get up, and I said, Moira, call the ambulance, call 911, because I can't go anywhere. All of a sudden, the paramedics are coming in, the firefighter guys and stuff, and they're coming in, and you got to remember what they do. They're not always fighting fires. They're pulling somebody out of a car, or they're rescuing somebody, or they're getting somebody to the hospital quickly, or whatever it is. And they do a lot of wonderful, important things for our society. So I appreciate them. And then they come in, they recognize me, of course. They want to, what drugs do you have? Can you get me through this?
Yes.
Oh yeah, well, fentanyl, let's try that.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's another thing. I mean, that particular attack, they tried 3 different narcotics on me. Fentanyl, that didn't work. Then they said, well, let's try some morphine.
Oh my goodness.
Let's give you morphine. They gave me that. I'm still writhing in pain. Then they gave me Dilaudid, and finally I passed out. They took good care of me, and I love those guys. But I appreciate them. So I'd like to see the foundation continue on. Both my daughter Sophie's husband works for the foundation. He's one of our vice presidents at the foundation, and my youngest daughter, Ella's husband, works for the foundation as well in our philanthropy department, doing a great job. Both of them are doing a great job. I think, there's a real place for the family to carry on this foundation and carry it forward. I'd like to see that happen. I'm going to be 70, How long will I keep doing the concerts and all the different things I'm doing? As long as it feels like I should be,
And with all the travel, it's a lot to do, especially the USO.
It's a little more. It's gotten a little more difficult over the years, for sure, and I've had to cut back on certain things. Maybe I'll do some acting. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if the right thing comes along.
That would be fun for us.
Yeah, I can't travel as much as I used to, or go away for long periods of time, or anything like that. But who knows? The right thing comes along, I'll do it. It's got to feel right. It's got to feel like the right part, the right people, all of that, the right amount of time. So some of these things I still want to work on to make sure that, that I give it every chance it can before, before I just need to stay home all the time. Right now, I feel like I've still got a lot of energy, a lot of good stuff there ready to go, and I want to solidify the foundation so it's solid. I think we're in a really solid place. I have a tremendous leadership team.
Yeah.
Our executive director's tremendous. Our vice president, tremendous. I've got young folks that have worked for me for over 10 years, going back to the earlier days of the foundation when it was starting to struggle its way along. Now they're seeing, what their efforts have achieved, and how it's grown, and we're all feeling very solid about where it is right now and where it can go. I just want to help as many people as possible. That's what it's there for. And I want the American people to feel like this is a reliable way to help our veterans.
Yes.
Help Gary, help our veterans. That's a reliable means to do so. And I feel like we do have a lot of wonderful people that support us. So I'm pretty grateful. Hard to say, like, what do I want to be remembered by? Just, I want to be a good dad. I want to be a good granddad. I want to be a good person, and I'm a grateful American.
The most beautiful part about your foundation, I feel like, is aside obviously from all the good that you're doing for so many, when you have people who want to stay, who want to continue to work for you, they don't do that unless the leadership treats them well and makes them feel wanted and appreciated and like there's incentive to stay and to help. So you won't say that, but I'll say that because that doesn't happen every day, as we all know. It starts at the top, and then the teaching continues, and to give back. It is. Thank God for Gary Sinise. Thank God for what you've done for so many. Thank you for doing it the right way and the hard way. When most people just take the safer route and stay quiet, because sometimes it's smarter. I didn't follow that either. But at the end of the day, I'll end with this because now I'm an idiot. Now I'm crying. Like, you'll love it because you've been to West Point many times and you have family members. My dad made us memorize part of the cadet prayer as kids, along with our Saturday morning room inspections that we had to salute when he walked in. And, but this part, you may know, I don't know, helped me to choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong, and never to be content with a half-truth when the whole can be won. So cool. The truth part for sure.
Yeah.
I live in our truth. You know, if they don't like it, fine. I love my country. I refuse to not say that out loud. But the harder right is the biggest deal. And I think that the example that you've shown by doing that, even when it wasn't easy, it's easier to do the wrong thing. It's more comfortable. It's safer. It's cheaper sometimes. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you've chosen to do it this way, and we just need more of you. So thank you. I'm sorry I'm a loser, but thank you. Thank you for sharing so much. It means a lot.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Gosh.
you. He's kept my feet warm.
That was the goal. Oh, goodness.